Okay, today's topic is reference angles. So what are reference angles? Well, let's take a look at some angles and see if we can figure it out. So here's an angle, 25 degrees. Now look at this second angle. This angle is 155. But look at the two pink angles. They have the same measure. That pink angle on 155 is the reference angle for 155 degrees. Now look at this pink angle on 205 degrees. That pink angle is again the reference angle for 205 degrees. And if we look at 335 degrees, the pink angle shown here is also the reference angle for 335 degrees. So let's take a look at what you can see about a reference angle. So one of the things that we're looking at is, first of all, when we talk about a reference angle, we're talking about an angle, a reference angle to a non-acute angle in standard position. So if you look at 205 degrees, it's not an acute angle and it's in standard position. So we're looking at reference angles for those kinds of angles. To start with, what do you notice? Well, that reference angle is a positive acute angle. So remember, we're looking at the pink part. One side of the reference angle is the x-axis. Can you see that? And where's the other side? The other side is the terminal side of the angle that we're talking about, in this case 205 degrees. So the reference angle for 205 degrees is 25 degrees. You can think of that, you can see that if you think about the fact that 205 degrees is 180 plus some more. The reference angle is the some more part. So the reference angle is 25 degrees. Look at another example. If we look at 155 degrees, let's make sure the criteria work. The reference angle, the pink part, is a positive acute angle. One side of that angle is the x-axis, and the other side is the terminal side of my angle 155. So now the reference angle for this one is the part of the angle that creates 180 degrees. So the reference angle for 155 degrees is 180 minus 155, which is still 25 degrees. Now take a look at if we were talking about this in terms of radians. If we look at pi over 3, that would be an acute angle. But if you look at 2 pi over 3, that's the angle that is in standard position that goes from the positive x-axis to that blue terminal side. And the reference angle for 2 pi over 3 is the part of the angle, or is a part of the unit circle that makes up that blue wedge. That angle is an positive acute angle. It's one side is on the x-axis and the other side is on the terminal side of 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3, to make that reference angle, to find that reference angle, 2 pi over 3 and the reference angle together make 180. So that means that reference angle has to be pi over 3, because 2 pi over 3 plus pi over 3 makes 1 pi, which is that 180 degrees. Now look at the red part, 4 pi over 3. That red angle is the reference angle to 4 pi over 3. It's one side is on the x-axis and one side is on the terminal side of the angle. In this case, the reference angle is 180 degrees, pi, plus whatever is left to make 4 pi over 3. Well, if you take pi, which is 3 pi over 3, you need to add 1 pi over 3, so that reference angle is pi over 3. Finally, look at 5 pi over 3. That green wedge is the angle, the reference angle for 5 pi over 3. One side is the x-axis and the other side is the terminal side of 5 pi over 3. Now in this case, I want to know the measure of the angle that creates that whole loop, 360 degrees, which is 2 pi. 2 pi is 6 pi over 3. To get from 5 pi over 3 to 6 pi over 3, I need a pi over 3. So all three of those angles, the blue, the red, and the green, are reference angles, and they all have the same measure, pi over 3 as that initial angle. All right, so now what I want you to do is I want you to practice a few of them. So in your interactive notebook, I'm going to have you in a minute pause the video. I want you to find the reference angle for each of these 5 angles. You may have noticed that in every case I sketched the angle before I found the reference angle. So for this activity, what I want you to do is sketch the angle first, then find the reference angle for each one. When you are finished with the 5, then unpause the video and keep going. Okay, now at this point, you should have sketched all of the angles, and these are my 5 angles. And then from each one, we're going to look and figure out what the reference angle is. So look at 128 degrees. That yellow piece right there is the reference angle. And its measure, in order to make 180 degrees, I have to have 52 degrees. So the reference angle is 52 degrees. Now look at 278. That green wedge is the reference angle. Oh, wait, check the criteria. Is one side of the angle the terminal side of 278? It is. Is the other side on the x-axis? It's not. This is a very common error that a lot of students make. You're used to finding a small angle, so you look at that little tiny angle over there on that y-axis and you think that's the reference angle, but it's not. The reference angle always has to lie on the x-axis. So this is the reference angle for 278. Now, 278 plus the reference angle has to make 360. So the measure of the reference angle is 82 degrees in this case. Take a look at C. Here the reference angle is again that wedge along the x-axis and the terminal side. So 472 is coterminal to 112. So it's easiest if you think of that coterminal angle first, and then I need to get to 180, so the reference angle is 68 degrees. Looking at D, here we have 8 pi over 3. 8 pi over 3 is coterminal to 2 pi over 3. If you go all the way around, that's 2 pi. If you subtract 2 pi from 8 pi over 3, 2 pi is 6 pi over 3. 8 pi over 3 minus 6 pi over 3 is 2 pi over 3. So I want an angle coterminal to 2 pi over 3. That's the angle that's going to get to me to pi, and that's pi over 3. And finally, negative 7 pi over 4. Notice that negative 7 pi over 4 is coterminal to pi over 4. So I really don't need a reference angle in here. The angle is negative 7 pi over 4 is the same as pi over 4, and so I already have my angle. Okay, that's it for this video. What we want you to do is try some problems. If you have any questions, make sure you talk to your teacher.